So the reason I'm making this video is I want to tell some people about Palantir. I came across this YouTube video last night when I was just researching some stuff. And I thought that some of the explanations in this video were really, really good at explaining as to why Palantir, this company that we're talking about, is going to absolutely explode over the coming years. And with that, they're a public company, so the share price is going to absolutely explode over the coming years. I will say this, that Palantir's bigger side of their business is their government business right now, with the U.S. government and some other governments around the world. I'll give you an idea. So the National Health Services of England signed a $580 million contract for 5 years with Palantir last November, December. I can't remember if it was either month. And then the U.S. military has signed 2 contracts with Palantir, one for $480 million over 5 years and one for $178 million over 3 years. And then some other local states and stuff have, I think Colorado or Wyoming or both, entered into an agreement on a contract, unspecified dollar amount on that, those contracts. But I want to give you an idea. So Palantir has 262 commercial customers. So I want to give you an idea of the runway of growth for commercial customers this company has. So Salesforce, founded in 1999, so 25 years old, has 150,000 customers. Now, is Palantir going to get to 150,000 customers? I don't know. Maybe someday. I don't know. We'll see, right? That's a big number. Now, ServiceNow has 1,933 customers with over $1 million in annual recurring revenue. Datadog, another software company, has 3,340 customers with over 100,000 annual recurring revenue. MongoDB, I don't even really know what they do specifically, but they're another software company. And not that any of these companies are direct competitors, because Palantir really, has a few, but not any real direct competitors because of how their software is set up in comparison to companies that might compete with them, right? Zscaler is a cybersecurity company. They're probably going to work mostly with commercial customers, 7,700 customers. CrowdStrike, also a cybersecurity company with 9,800 customers. And Snowflake, I guess the closest thing, sort of, kind of, instead of Databricks, has 9,400 commercial customers, right? So when we think about the availability for this company to grow incredibly large very quickly, the reason why I brought this up is because sometimes people ask me what I'm buying or what company I think is going to go, their stock price is going to go way up over the coming years. A lot of times I think it's just, what do you want? What should I buy to make money? And it's not how I think about it. What should I buy this week to make money? Just buy some Palantir and wait a few years and you'll be happy with what you get. But I know a lot of people I want to double up now, quick money, crypto, this or that. Really, I'm looking for the least risky, most potential upside places to put my money, and that's how I think about it. I don't like to gamble. I hate that. I will buy things that are of value, not a great company, but a great company at a cheap price, more so. Now, is Palantir trading cheap right now? Probably not super cheap, but in comparison to what they're going to grow into, yes, I think it's going to be a 4 or 5x over the coming years. 3, 4, 5 years. I think this company goes up 4 or 5x. maybe more. Who knows? Might hit a hype cycle. At any dip, I'm buying. I'm still buying. I don't care. Anyways, I want to play this video because it kind of explains a big deal about Palantir. So I'm going to go ahead, cut the mic, and then we'll see.
A fucking shit show at a lot of levels. But you know, I think that it's going to be good, and ultimately, like, we all need to recognize, like, this is a massive tectonic shift for the company. Over the place, I'm seeing a huge uptick in adoption. Well, I'm seeing a big uptick in adoption. I don't want to oversell things, and I think that enterprises are finally figuring out that there's something to this Foundry thing, right? And, like, you know, they see all of the videos, they have this tool in their stack, they're wondering, like, maybe how to approach it, or extract value from it, or maybe they've got some champions already in their org who love this platform. And so I think we are starting to see the I get it now moments around Foundry at a lot of these enterprises, and the funnel's opening up now too to customers who maybe previously couldn't afford Foundry, and obviously the broader developer community. So those moments are happening at a much faster rate, and you're just gonna have to trust me on that one. I also noticed, like, companies are very sick of the Frankenstein monster. If you go back and watch my interviews from, like, 2021 and 2022, I predicted that 2025 would be the inflection point for Palantir, and that was mostly driven around by my experience building these Frankenstein monsters and seeing the high rates of failure of trying to build your own Foundry-like platform, big data platform. There's a lot of shit to do. We'll cover in a second, like, what the modern big data stack kind of looks like. But, like, managing that complexity at scale is extremely difficult. And so my thesis on Palantir from a developer perspective was, like, eventually all these homegrown initiatives are too complex, companies will scrap them, and they'll move towards a solution that's made by the industry. Because anytime you see all this undifferentiated heavy lifting and a large amount of complexity, what ends up happening is there's usually a platform that emerges that fills that gap, and companies can get out of the software business and focus on the business they're actually in, right? And I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see that also business is sick of the misalignment between IT and the business. There is a very real source of friction of these long-going IT projects that have become, I won't call them boondoggles, but, like, it's sort of this thing where the business doesn't even remember why they started these initiatives in the first place. It's just like, it's been going on for so long, we just assume we need to build a data lake and a data platform and blah, blah, blah. So, like, I think that there's this questioning that's going on, especially as, like, businesses grapple with supply chain disruptions, you know, economy that's not doing all that great. Exactly why are we building this again? Remind me. And that this friction is, like, they don't want to wait another year for IT to come up with a solution to a problem they need to solve today. You know, you have to, this misalignment between the business need and the IT, you know, sort of way they work and deliver, I think is very real, and it's what I observed years ago, and I could see that trend kind of snowballing, and I still believe that. I still think 2025 is sort of the year when all of these internal initiatives are going to face amazing amounts of pressure, and will just ultimately be replaced by a platform that solves these problems. And, you know, Palantir Foundry is not the only one. There's things like Fabric, and there's things like Databricks, and there's other emerging technologies from Amazon that look very promising. And Amazon's, you know, had a pretty decent data platform for quite a while if you can stitch it all together. But Foundry is still the only one you can implement in weeks, not months, right? So I think that Foundry has this unique advantage of being able to recapture momentum in a much faster way. And now that the barriers to entry and pricing have come down so much, there's really no reason to just not use Foundry. Like, why would I want to take another tool that will take me longer and is harder to learn and is still an amalgamation of several services, like, when I can just take this one product that has a good learning platform around it and has good support in consultancies and enterprise world to learn it and support it, like, just use Foundry, right? So, like, I do think the aha moments are happening. I do think that people are sick of the Frankenstein monster, etc. And so let's just take a real quick look at what does that Frankenstein monster actually look like in the past, and maybe what it might look like in the future. All right, so let's take a look at that Frankenstein monster. I just Googled this image. So the modern data stack, most of these are garbage. A couple of them are okay. But, like, I found this one was pretty decent. So, like, this is pretty representative of all of the components that go into our modern data stacks that we use for business intelligence and data-driven decision making. It's complicated, right? Look at all these things. Just look at the sources, right? Like, my God, having to integrate all these Yes, there are data connectors. There's companies that specialize in this. Fivetran, CData. CData is the most common one I see. But like it's still complicated. You still have to integrate these as separate offerings, developer tools. You need a whole team of engineers to support it, and you got to map all this onto a cloud architecture typically, which is this whole other set of platform engineering that you have to worry about. And typically, when you do that, by the way, you do get vendor locked to a cloud provider. As much as you might try to obfuscate the control plane of the hyperscaler, it ends up getting embedded in your code. And I've yet to see basically anything at scale or any decent complexity be able to be portable between two cloud providers, just one to one. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Don't go crazy in the comments. What I'm saying is it's just very uncommon that, and eventually you do end up getting those APIs embedded in your system. So you got that whole other layer to deal with, which is the control plane, and you try to use tools like Terraform to abstract it, but eventually you just end up having to write a lot of custom code to deal with it. So anyway, very complicated, and I often hear people like say things like, "Can't Tableau just do what Foundry just did?" Well, no, because Tableau doesn't do all of this. Look at everything to the left of Tableau, people, right? Just everything to the left of Tableau. You don't get a modern data stack with a data warehouse or lakehouse with Tableau. You have to build all that other machinery, and then Tableau kind of sits on top of it. Tableau is a great product, so is Power BI, so is Looker, but they're shallow products in that they're assuming you have this data infrastructure to then use them. Whereas Foundry provides the entire iceberg, to not just the tip of the iceberg, but the whole thing to the left, right? And it does so in a way that it exposes it for non-technical people. It's like approachable. You can walk up, you can scroll through your data sources, connect SAP, connect Salesforce, connect everything else that's in your organization that you want to support. And you can do so with a visual interface, right? Anyone can do that, in my opinion. And then once the data source is hooked up, you can use Pipeline Builder. If you've been following my videos on the parsing of the SEC documents, you can use a visual tool to not only process structured data, but unstructured data like documents, right? Like, oh my God, like that's not even talking about how complicated this thing gets when you're trying to do unstructured data, right? So Foundry is very, very good at fulfilling all of these things and obfuscating the complexity, because the hardest thing to do in software engineering is manage complexity at scale. And that's why whenever you see these sort of undifferentiated heavy lifting that's going on in these spaces to manage complexity across multiple enterprises, eventually a company shows up that just fills the gap and provides a platform to do it for them. So anyway, that's the Frankenstein monster. Let's get back to the main topics. All right. So now that we've covered sort of the Frankenstein monster and some of the challenges or some of the predictions there, and maybe the shifts that are going on among customers, let's just talk about the last part of this video, which is what I sort of see as the common challenges as companies look to not just position Foundry. It might be other technology, but primarily when they're trying to adopt Foundry, I see a common set of issues, and I created something called the Scaled Foundry Adoption Framework to deal with that. And the challenges, I think, fall into several buckets. But the first one is like, how does Foundry fit into my stack? Like we often see this with when people like the technology side of the house at an enterprise or small business is like, look, I've got all these tools, right? Like, and I think that's something a lot of Palantir investors miss. Every enterprise has basically every tool. It's not like an enterprise just has Foundry or Databricks or Snowflake. It's like they've got them all, dude. They've got all the tools. Pretty much any organization at a certain size you're going to walk into has every piece of technology you could possibly imagine, and it's how they all fit together, because typically when a company is adopting technology, that might not be driven by central IT function. It might be driven by a line of business function. And so this team over here wants Databricks because maybe that's the tool that is the sharpest tool for them to build a model. Or maybe they want Snowflake because they really appreciate the data warehousing capabilities and the ease of use and like how good this thing is at scale. So like there's different reasons people adopt different technologies. They're often driven from the bottom up in organizations, not necessarily the top down, but then you get this weird misalignment in strategy for the technology side of the house, where they have to kind of figure out where all these things fit together, what business functions they're driving, should they be consolidated, etc. So like there's always the question around these things. It's not just Foundry, but Foundry is the least understood, I think, in a lot of cases. So we often have to coach people around where does Foundry fit in my stack? What's the right layer? And to me, like personally, the way I see Foundry fitting in a stack is it's like It's an abstraction layer over the cloud. It powers operations. It pretty much replaces all the parts of your business that still run on Excel, and it gives you a nice layer to operationalize all those other assets that are being created in these other technologies, right? And so Foundry is very much a unifier. It's not a divider. It very much brings these other technologies together and make them 10 times more valuable when trying to leverage the products of those technologies. So, for example, if I build a data product in Databricks or a model, it's actually complicated to operationalize that data product or model, because I've got to add a bunch of things that, yes, Databricks tries to make it easy to build inference endpoints, but it doesn't provide an application building layer to incorporate those inference endpoints, and it's still not probably the thing I want to use in a lot of cases. So there's all these other bits I've got to add around it, and so Foundry makes all of that super simple, and all those products coming out of Databricks, for example, are first-class citizens in Foundry. So understanding that Foundry is this great unifier of all these things, it serves as sort of a central hub in which you can now extract way more value from these assets, because citizen engineers, and especially if you pair them with like a single software engineer, you can get like 20 citizen engineers building solutions that actually operationalize and use these things, right? So it is a layer above all these foundational things that typically abstracts away the hyperscaler that you're using. You're still using a hyperscaler. Their CPUs and GPUs are going to be warm, don't worry. But you don't have to deal with the complexity of building an end-to-end solution on the hyperscaler. And it's much easier to get to the actual point where these other products, these other things you've built, are actually valuable to the business. And it brings down the friction between the IT side of the house and the business. That friction I was talking about earlier, Foundry is great at reducing that friction. So that's sort of...
Okay, so now that you heard all that and what that guy had to say, he had some more stuff to say, but that's about as far as I wanted to go. That's essentially, in a nutshell, why I would be choosing to put money into Palantir, is because they make it just so much easier for these companies to operate, faster, and more valuable. And they're saving tons of money for their customers. And so when I think about all of that, and I think about companies that I would, think over the next 5-7 years we're going to multiply the money that I put in it, then this would be one of those companies. Another one I really like is Tesla, and that's no secret to anyone that knows me. And then also PayPal because PayPal has Venmo, and they have something that most people don't know, and it's Braintree. And what it does is a backdoor type of business-to-business transaction sort of thing. I'm not going to go great detail, but I think PayPal is just trading extremely undervalued, and that's easy double up. And if you go by what a guy named Patrick Bet-David says, life is a game of doubles. And if I'm looking at, where to double my money and how long it might take, I think those three would be, solid doubles in a short period of time. But Palantir, I think, is far more than a double, and I think PayPal's going to be more than a double too. But that's all I got to say about that. If you watch this video, awesome. Give me a like, love it. I don't at this point, it was a little bit of effort I put in this video, but not a ton. It's just kind of sharing what I'm learning with you all. And I like doing that. And I'm not asking for anything in return. Just, maybe you take your time and you watch it and you learn from it. And I appreciate y'all. And I want to see y'all win as much as I win. So, check it out. Thanks.